how can you look at that? And they did, as I said, for 4 minutes. They looked at everything, but they looked at that foul. They rock and rolled that replay for ages. If that's not a foul in the box on a defender, I don't know. I don't know what is. So once again, we have and look, we can pick apart maybe some of the Arsenal performances and what they missed and what they didn't miss. But this will sort of paper over any deficiencies with no Jesus and no Odegaard. This will paper over the deficiencies because, to me, that more than anything else, that looked like a clear shove with two hands. Crystal clear.
OK, let's do the rounds. Frank, I don't want to dwell on this too much because I imagine everyone agrees. Frank, that should have been chalked off?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And I'm fed up, seeing that so many times. It's a clear foul from Joelinton pushing Gabriel. And I don't know. I mean, something has to be done because that's stupid. It's such a big game, such big intensity because of people who don't know football, in fact. Because if you don't make that decision by saying it's a foul, you know nothing about football. You don't know what it is to be pushed in the back when you're in a positioning where you have to kick the ball out. And that's absolutely crazy for me. Obviously, Gabriel is pushed by Joelinton. You don't have to think 4 minutes about that. You don't have to check if the ball was out, if Gordon was offside. It's a foul. You disallowed the goal.
Kieran?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Frank's right. It doesn't take long to realise that, Joelinton's literally just climbing all over his back. And so, yeah, it's definitely a foul. It's definitely a foul. And it's a shame. Frank's right as well. It's a shame because it was a good game. It was a really good game. It was entertaining, high intensity, really good to watch. So it's a shame that it was just, a few poor decisions. It's a bit away for Arsenal to lose an unbeaten run at the start of the season, since the start of the season. And every fan and player and manager has a right to feel, really frustrated with that. And also, for me, the goal is controversial, right? But for me, I just can't believe for the life of me that Bruno managed to play 90 plus minutes of football today. Like, I'm just not sure how he basically was just allowed to run around and then clothesline people like he was, the monk in Mean Machine. And the thing is, not long before that, I was saying that, the way that I like that the ref was letting a lot go because no one likes a stop-start game, especially, when it was so nicely poised, that game. So I enjoyed that he was letting a few things go, but there comes a point when you're not playing football anymore. And I just can't believe that every official just let him run around today, doing whatever he wanted. It was crazy to me. It was crazy. We're focusing on if the ball was out of play or if it was offside or if it was a foul on Gabriel. And none of that would have happened if Bruno wasn't on the pitch. Like he clearly shouldn't have been. And so, no one wants to see that kind of play. Everyone's passionate about the game. But when you just take it to a whole nother level like that, it just... it's tough to take.
Just one last thing on the goal, Shaq. We've all sat here. Everyone unanimously says that that's a foul. And so when it was kicked, we were just shocked. Weren't we all watching it together and just couldn't quite believe it?
Yeah, I share that sentiment. I mean, of course, once the goal goes in, I'm kind of celebrating. And at first look, I think that's just one of those where the ball is kind of hung up and two players come tussling for it and Joelinton got the better of it. But well, once you see the replays, I think it's quite clearly a foul. And I was as surprised as anybody that it stood.
Unless the laws have changed, there's no excuse for Joelinton. For Guimaraes, you're not allowed to, whether you think there's a lot of contact or not, it was cynical. It was not accidental. So he should have gone. But you can also reference that by saying, well, you had the Havertz challenge. Some may argue it was a red. I think yellow was probably all right. But then, not too long after that, he lost his head,
challenge, yeah.
And he had another sliding challenge that came in, completely cleaned the player out. It might have been Callum Wilson, and the referee let him off. So, there's a little bit of swinging and roundabouts here. There's certainly no denying the goal. The downside for us, with the goal going in, and Newcastle, I mean, they played the part. That home crowd just sort of urged them forward. Callum Wilson was a great battle with the two centre-halves, and he took him off, and he put Anthony Gordon through there for something different. But I thought Gabriel, and particularly Saliba, for most of the game, were excellent. Absolutely superb. Declan Rice in front certainly in the first half. But they missed the guile in the final third.
Right.
They missed Odegaard, they missed Jesus, they just missed that little ingredient in there when those guys are not around. And for Newcastle's part, you know, they really made a game of it. I mean, it was a proper blood and guts game.
Agreed. I thought it was a great game of football. And Saliba seemed to be right there every time the ball got crossed into the box. He was there just to tidy everything up. But for me, Gabriel defensively was Arsenal's highlight. Callum Wilson tried to drift onto Gabriel or into that channel. And every time Newcastle came past the half-line and looking for Callum Wilson, who's a different player from Alexander Isak. He wants to play with his back to goal up against centre-backs. There was nothing for Callum Wilson to feed off of. There was no room for him to run into. And I thought Gabriel was just simply outstanding. That being said, you look at Newcastle centre-backs and Lascelles, who's come in, I think he started 7 or 8 games last season, has been simply outstanding again for Newcastle United. So there was so much about this game. And again, while, yes, Arsenal were missing the likes of Odegaard and Gabriel Jesus, as I say, I think it is a much different threat without Alexander Isak. And the team coped. And it really made for a very, very good game of football.
No Botman.
And sadly, this big discussion is the goal, because there was so much good to pick from it.
But no Botman, as you mentioned. No Tonali. No Isak. Dan Burn had to go off at half-time.
Yep.
Right. So, you know, Arsenal have to look in a little bit as well. Right. I get it, the refereeing decision is a shocker. But Newcastle are not at their strongest either at the moment. And Arteta and they have built a decent squad, I'll give you that. Murphy comes on, has to go off like literally within seconds or minutes because he looked as if he dislocated his shoulder and hurt his shoulder again. So Newcastle faced adversity as well, right? But again, we're talking about this big decision. But I mean, again, I am not convinced that Mikel Arteta has made the right decision with this goalkeeping position. I am just not. I said that from day one. I've said, look, I don't think the passing has improved any. I don't think the fact that he's supposed to be a better passer of the ball has made a jot of a difference to this Arsenal side. But I tell you where it has made a difference, his decision-making with cross balls. Not just today, but almost every game that he's played in. Now, first thing Shaq said again today, you thought he was quite close to his near post.
Too far to the near post. I said this with the goal that he conceded against Chelsea. I thought he took a very advanced position, almost parallel to his near post, when there was no threat at the near post. You take that position if the striker coming in is coming in near post. He got embarrassed with the Mudryk goal, and I thought this one, once that ball goes wide, again he was very advanced, and the nearest player to it was Gordon, who was coming centrally, and then kind of ran to the near post. So, and even then, when he takes his position near post, he's square on.
Right.
So once the ball goes over his head, he can't make any ground. He cannot make up any ground. And if you look at where, and once again, yes, it was a foul, but when you look at Gabriel and where he is in relation to along the goal, he's probably a yard back of centre. And the ball is hitting him in his chest. And Raya is nowhere. And that, for me, is prime goalkeeping, or what should be prime goalkeeping position to catch a cross. But for me, poor starting position, poor body shape, that is not a complaint you should be making about a goalkeeper at this level of the game.
Yeah, Kieran, if your goalkeeper just came out and sorted that ball, we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Craig. Obviously, now at the moment he's not in the best form, but it's still early. It's still early, so I don't want to jump on him too much. But you know, I think he's playing with fire a little bit, and I think as Shaka says, his starting positions are a little bit worrying. You know, and that will start to filter through the back four and the deep lying midfielder. And you know, if these insecurities keep cropping up, then it will affect the team, unfortunately. So, you know, it's probably something that Mikel will want to address soon.
But it is early.
But yeah, it seems to be a little bit sticky.
No, it is early, Kieran. But I mean, at the end of the day, you may have noticed that team at playing blue in Manchester they're going to put a huge run together, I would imagine. And Arsenal, it's a problem because And he said it in his interview, Arteta. He said, this league is difficult. It's difficult when City are playing the way they are, when Liverpool are playing the way they are, when Newcastle play like this. You can't afford somebody to give them time. Now, do I think Ramsdale, who lost 3 in midweek, I'll give you that, do I think he would have been able to paw that away? I do. I'm not saying he would have caught it, but I think having a lot bigger stature and a better starting position would have been able to swat that away. Right, Raya cannot. Right, he's not the biggest, he's not the most imposing, and he's making bad decisions. Now, there are other facets of the team, but it's undeniable that this is not a head-scratcher and something that Mikel Arteta might have to backtrack on as the weeks go on. But by that time, if he doesn't and he keeps making mistakes, he got away with it in the Man City game at home. He did that very same thing 2 or 3 times in the Man City game. He got bailed out because Arsenal won. But how many times can he keep making mistakes while City and others keep winning? There's going to be a lot of pressure on decision-making for the Arsenal manager very soon.
Let me also say, listen, I get it. You feel that you lost the game unjustly and you're angry about it. But Mikel Arteta is saying that there was only one team trying to win this game. I get it. You're hurt. But I thought that was a ridiculous statement to make. Given the game of football that we just witnessed, I thought that was an absolutely ridiculous statement to make.
Frank, overall, looking at the attacking prowess of Arsenal, how concerned would you be today that they didn't really create anything?
Well, I think it's Craig who mentioned that some players were missing, and that's a reality. And in fact, you have also some players that we see less than at the beginning of the season. I'm thinking about Saka. The second half, he was absolutely invisible. And that's something Arsenal cannot afford. We don't have the Martinelli that we have. Of course, Odegaard wasn't there. And Nketiah was quite absent today. And we have the problem, Kai Havertz, still. You know, where to put him, how to deal with him. That was the main issue. I mean, I would say that overall, the 2 defense were better than the 2 attacks, and that's a credit that you have to give to Arsenal defensive position and Newcastle one. But yes, I was quite disappointed, especially at some point where they were playing with more pace, with more creativity, with more responsibilities in what they were doing. Right now, it's like, yeah, we don't take any risks, and let's see. There is another thing. You have Jorginho. I've seen Jorginho playing for Chelsea. This is the kind of player who makes passes to make sure that the passes will be in the stats, will be all good. 100 passes. You know, I don't take any risk. I just play wide. I like the fact that you have somebody like Partey in the middle of the park who take more risk, who go forward. I love players who like to try to get some risk, to go quicker at front, to serve the players who play at front in the best way, to give them some free time. It doesn't exist with Jorginho. That was the issue already when he was playing for Chelsea, and that's still the same problem. So it doesn't go that well for Arsenal right now, especially when they play away from home. And we already saw that when they played against Chelsea. They were fortunate that Sanchez put them back into the game, but they should have lost against Chelsea already.
He's the type of player, Jorginho, for me, at this stage of his career, that comes on 70, 75 minutes to shore a game up.
Right.
Keep the ball, talk to the players, use your experience, keep it simple and tidy. But I totally agree with Frank, and I know Partey's not been available. I think he would take a big load off Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice is having to do too much because Jorginho is a ball player but not a great defensive midfielder. You know, puts himself in position, but he's not that physical. I think Partey's a terrific player. I know he's had his problems, but I do think that would be a better balance in the midfield. But once again, for the majority of the game, I thought Rice is looking like... I know he played in the team that lost, but I think he's looking like the 100 million plus player that he is. I mean, he just gets forward, makes tackles. But yeah, Arsenal, they're going to have to find some form, find some consistency. And I think I might be wrong in some of the stats. I think they had 1 shot on target or something like that. So that tells you. The Jesus injury problems are a problem. I said this to you the other day. I like Eddie Nketiah, good player. You can't ask the young lad to carry the can for the whole season. Now, the other question would be, well, could I put Kai Havertz up there? Because he has played there before for Chelsea, Leverkusen and Germany. But he's not giving anybody any confidence. So then you're saying, well, if we can't rely on Gabriel Jesus to be fit on a regular basis, do I have to go back to the board and say, we need to go and spend in January again? So there's already a lot of stuff to think about for Mikel Arteta before we're even at Christmas. So hardly an ideal start to the season.
You're going to owe Stevie Nicol $50, aren't you, Kieran?
No, not yet. I'm still a believer. But I will say, I think Eddie Nketiah was quiet today. But I think that Ødegaard for me was the biggest miss, because he's just such the link between the midfield and the forwards, and he just has the ability to speed the game up when it's really quiet. There was at like 10 minutes today. There was someone played a give and go with Havertz, and I feel like if he would have made that pass, it would have completely opened up the game in the early stages of the game. And he misplaced the pass. And I was thinking, if that's Ødegaard, I just feel like that pass would have been more accurate. And then that can change the game completely, because all of a sudden, especially at somewhere like St James's Park, you open up the game once or twice in the early stages and you create a few chances, and it just settles everything down. And I just think that was the biggest miss today, Ødegaard.